Good evening, Pack 142. How you all doing at home today? This is going to be Mr. Keenan's Cub Scout Cubmaster minute, or a couple of minutes. I'm going to do a little teaching with you guys and make a little connection, and hopefully you'll learn something. So, in lieu of having a den meeting, if you need to do this at home, that'd be fantastic. So just grab a seat, sit down, and I'm going to start off with a little knot tying. So if you happen to have a string at home or a piece of rope, we can do the most basic knot of all, and that is the square knot. Now I know some of you Weeblos 1 out there, or now Weeblos 2 is saying, oh, a square knot. I know how to tie a square knot. Good. Right now, tie me a square knot. So you might forget how to do that, right? So that's okay. That's okay. We're going to go over it real fast. The easiest way to tie knots, and how I'm going to do this going forward, is I'm going to teach you with 2 different color strings. This way you can see it better. The square knot is the most important knot of all. Now I have a scout, his name is Charlie Kim, he's a man like me, and Charlie served 25 years in the United States Navy. And I taught him when he was a Cub Scout, and then later he became a Sea Scout. I remember teaching him the square knot, and I said, Charlie, one day this knot's going to save your life. And I have you know, a couple of years ago, and now he's a Master Chief Petty Officer, he sent me a Facebook thing and said, hey, by the way, that knot you taught me, it saved my life. So I feel pretty good about that. So square knot is used to attach 2 strings together. Let's say you want to tie a clothesline up, or you want to pull a toy around, and you have 2 strings and both of them short. You want to make it longer. That's what you use a square knot for. It's a joining knot. It connects things. How you tie it? Simplest way. Remember, we're doing this in reverse because you're watching me here on the video. Right over left. You're going to twist it under, and the yellow one has now become the left. You put it over the right, you twist it under, and it should look like that. It's called a square knot because it has 4 corners. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I know they're curved, but then it's a corner. The other way to tie the square knot, you make a little loop, that's a hole. This is the fish. The fish comes out of the hole, it goes around the back of the hole, and it comes back in. It goes down the hole, not up. And it looks like that. You also know the square knot's correct because you can do that with it. So again, that little hole in the thing there, it's a little bit tricky. I still like right over left. See how I put it over? I tie it under, left over right. Tie it under. This is one of those knots that you should be able to do blindfolded, behind your back, learn to do it with one hand in your pocket like surgeons learn how to do it. This is the most important knot. In order to become a Boy Scout, you must know how to tie the joining knot, the square knot. And that's why, look in your uniform right now, every Scout uniform has the square knot right up here on the world crest. Every Scout in the world wears this patch. And that little knot, the square knot is there, it symbolizes joining together. So talking about connections, I'm going to make a quick connection for you. What does this light bulb and this cell phone have in common? Absolutely nothing. But there is a thread, a slight connection that you don't get. And I want you to sit back and listen to a quick story. This light bulb is what we use to see by. This changed the world because nighttime you are now able to stay up and do your homework. Nighttime you can read. Nighttime you can travel the streets safely. Nighttime factories can stay open. And in the 1920s, nighttime baseball. The light bulb changed the world. And we all can agree the cell phone and modern technology has changed the world. If it wasn't for the light bulb and our modern electronics, you wouldn't be able to watch me right now in this video on Facebook or however I decide to do it. You also wouldn't be able to communicate as easily. You wouldn't be able to do Zoom. And yet all this started 100 years ago. You all know who Thomas Edison is? He's the man who invented the light bulb. The incandescent light bulb, yeah, it's kind of old-fashioned by today's standards, but it changed the world. Thomas Edison invented this, but he went on to invent something greater. He invented a machine to record your voice, much like we're doing now. Thomas Edison, back in the 1870s, invented something called an Ediphone. And it's a tube He figured that if you take a piece of cloth or a piece of paper and stretch it really tight and you talked into it through a tube, your voice would vibrate on that paper and scratch the voice into the paper. And when you play it back through the tube, you can hear it. And he invented that. Paper was hard to come by insofar as for recording purposes. It didn't stand very good. He tried tinfoil, but eventually he went to wax. This is an original Edison gold recording wax cylinder from 1900. It's over 120 years ago. And a person's voice was recorded by a machine. They would speak into a tube, and the vibrations of the voice would go through the tube and vibrate onto here. Much like if you put a string between two tin cans and talk to each other like a telephone, same concept. And the voice is recorded on this. How do you play it? Well, you see, Thomas Edison also invented the Edison tube playing machine. The Edison. This is an original. It's from 1903. I have not worked on it in a long time, so unfortunately it doesn't work as good as I'd like it to, as well as I'd like it to. It needs a belt to be tightened up in here. But how it would work is, you would take that tube, it's a wax tube, and it slides onto this cylinder. You lock it in place, and then you crank this handle over here, and it sets it in motion. It makes a little wound up like a toy, and winds up a spring in here connected to this string. Now this string is loose, this belt. It's very, very old. So when I play it, you're going to hear the voice. You might not be able to hear what they're saying, but they actually are singing, but it kind of skips, and I apologize for that. But it's the best I can do at this moment. Can you move closer with that? Now, it's not like a modern cell phone where you guys might hear a video from YouTube or your latest download, and the quality on this is much better. But think of this. Imagine living in a farmhouse. It's 1900, 1905. You might not even have a light bulb in your house because there's no electricity. But for $20, which is about maybe $200, $300, $400 in today's money, your parents could save up and buy one of these. And for the first time in your house, without anyone ever to have to play an instrument, you could slip on a tube and hear someone play music. You can hear a voice recording of somebody 100 miles away. You might hear a speech by a president that was recorded years before. We actually have voice recordings of Native Americans from the turn of the century that have long since passed on, speaking languages that long have since died. But we know what they sound like because Edison had the foresight to invent something. So one day when you have an idea like a light bulb or a voice recording, put it down the paper and try it out. And one day you might also change the world. This is your Cubmaster, Mr. Keenan. You have a great night.